Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today with Kitson Migration. Today we have two speakers here today with us to share with you. One is Kitson Migration founders and managing director, Dato Michael Yong. The other gentleman next to Dato is Mr. Ryan Beer. Mr. Ryan has been working in the Asia migration and Australia-Asia trade and investment since 2001. He has been with the government and the private sector and more than 20 years experience in the investment and business sector in Australia. Today, we're going to share about the outlook of the Australia business and investment opportunity during the COVID-19 outbreak. So I will pass the floor to Dato Michaels and Ryans to introduce themselves. At the end of the presentation, then we will open up the floor for Q&A. So Dato, let's start with you.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's good to be back online. I hope the viewers back online, you can view us. We are actually speaking from remotely because of the COVID. Some of us are working remotely from home, and we are glad that we managed to invite Ryan Beer. He's a very busy man, very tight schedule, that we managed to get into time slot for him to share with us today about the situation in South Australia, the opportunity they can look forward, and also the investment opportunity you can get. Right? So let me first introduce myself. I'll just put on a PowerPoint and then followed by my introduction. And then after that, I'll pass the floor back to Jimmy, and then we will have our main guest speaker, Ryan Beer, to come in. Just let me put up the slides. Yeah, Jimmy, can you see the slides, the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So let me first introduce about Kitson Migration, who we are, right? So this is a brief introduction of myself, as Jimmy has introduced me earlier, right? I'm actually a registered migration agent, whereby my license are actually issued by the Department of Home Affairs. And today I will talk about Australia migration. I also hold a New Zealand immigration advisory license. So let me move on to introduce my company. So Kitson Migration has been in the business for more than 10 years. So our operation spread across Australia and Southeast Asia. In Malaysia, basically we have multiple offices. We have one in Kuala Lumpur, one in Bandar Utama at Centre Point. We have an office in Penang, and we also have an office in Kota Kinabalu. And in other countries, basically, we have our partners in Brunei, and recently we have went into Indonesia, into Surabaya. So in Australia, we actually operate from Brisbane as our main head office. We have a big team over there. And in Adelaide, we also have another office where we basically transfer two of our Malaysian staff over to the Adelaide office for the last 2 years. So who we are a team of registered migration agents. In our group, we have 6 of us that is licensed migration agent. In the Malaysia operation, myself, which is, you can call me Michael, and then my colleague, Moon Kong, all right? So both of us are actually Malaysian. So we operate the Malaysia office. So Moon is stationed in Adelaide to support the Malaysian client. I'm stationed in Malaysia and Australia in both countries. So back home in Malaysia, we have a team of 10 staff supporting us. And in the Brisbane office, we have the rest of our 4 migration agents based in Brisbane. So each of us are specialized in one particular visa. So we have been doing this for many, many years. So even any typical case that we have our own expertise in-house to be able to overcome it. So I myself, I've been doing this business and investment migration visa for many years. I have many, many years of experience. So we are doing by the hundreds of applications. And let me talk a little bit about Kitson, why us. So as I shared earlier on, we are all registered migration agent, which means we are administrated by the Department of Home Affairs. We have a very strict code of conduct to follow. Some of my colleagues are lawyer by profession, and a couple of my colleagues are accountants. So 6 of us in the team are licensed agent, and we are supported by another back-end team of more than 10 staff supporting us in the documentation, in the sales and marketing, and also in the processing. So in terms of operation, Malaysia, this is our 12 years of operation. Worldwide, we already have more than 14,000 customers. Just to let you know a quick snapshot about in Malaysia, Kitson service about 240 cases per year. So we have been getting consistent numbers of migrants using our services, and we have been in this marketplace for almost more than 10 years. Sorry. So what service do we provide? When you reach out to us, myself and my team, all right, so Jimmy is one of my colleagues, and obviously we have the other colleagues, which I will share the phone number to you later on. When we first meet up with you, we will give you a free assessment. So we understand what is your circumstances, what situation you are, and what is your main goal and your objective for this permanent visa. Then we will map out the pathway for you for the visa. So being a registered migration agent, you basically have consumer protection. So we are supposed to, we have to under the code of conduct to explain to you the cheapest and the shortest pathway. Now, the qualifying requirement for Australian permanent resident changes quite regularly every year. It's getting harder and harder. So sometimes we will assess you, we may not be able to, you may not be eligible, but not to worry, we will definitely look at other options to share with you. So some of you may have 2 or 3 options, then we will share with you the 2 or 3 options, and then we will tell you which is the cheapest and the shortest pathway. Then once you engage us, we'll be here with you for the next 12 to 24 months. Why 12 to 24 months? The visa takes about a year to 2 years for the decision. So during this period, my team will be liaising the Department of Home Affairs on your behalf. And any communication that comes in, we'll definitely inform you. And any additional document required, we'll be there to assist you all the way until the decision for visa. Now, the other area that we find that very important for migrants in terms of engaging our service is the post-grant advice. So over the years, myself being a migrant, I moved to Adelaide in South Australia way back about 14 to 15 years ago. I've experienced a lot of up and down and a lot of question marks. So we don't know where to reach, me and my family don't know where to reach out, and then we learn everything from basics. So we are blessed that we have some friends, and we make some new friends along the way, and then we learn. So all these years of experience, I actually brought this experience into Kitson migration. That's why we actually put a lot of effort to ensure that when you move to Australia, stay in touch with us. We will do our best to help you in any question or any particular networking that we can put you in. So in area of child education, your medical benefit, and for people who are going as a business visa, there's going to be a lot of challenges when you go to a new marketplace. All right, you may look good in the surface, but it's a new marketplace, a different culture, and we are blessed to get partnership with people like Ryan Beers, who has been supporting us over the years in South Australia, and with his years of experience in government and the year experience in the private sector. Basically, he understands the culture, the work of culture, because he's been in China for many years. So he understands the culture of the Chinese way of doing business. And the good thing is that he's also a local from South Australia. He'll be able to put you up with all the right connection. And then obviously there's tax, there's legal thing, so we will basically link you up with the accountant to lawyers and people who are looking for property to buy a house or to rent a house. So we have basically a list of property developer where we will link you up directly. So quickly on the benefit of Australia permanent resident. I myself being a migrant way back, I still remember about 16 years ago before I applied for a permanent resident, I basically has zoomed into 3 reasons why I want to migrate, why I want to bring my family over. So with that, over the years, I've been speaking to hundreds of my clients, migrants, family, looking at them settling down in Australia. I basically zoomed into 3 main attractions, 3 motivations that actually motivate us to migrate. Number 1 is obviously for our children's future. So Australia is a very fair playground. So my children did their high school, and some of them started from high school, some of them started from a university. So they basically are already in the workplace. So when they grow up, they are given a fair playground. So they have fair opportunity for them to expand their future life and to build their career and also their family. The other motivation we're looking at is the healthcare benefit. So healthcare benefit is something that I look forward for my retirement. And currently, the current pandemic situation is a very good example if you were to follow the Australian news, where Ryan Beer will share with you later on how successful the Australian government managed to control the pandemic and how they are now moving on to the stage of relaxing and open out in a different stage, and how they protect themselves being an island. All right, it's a huge island. They protect themselves from foreign visitor at this temporary moment, and to protect the local and to protect the economy. And then the third thing is obviously a quality lifestyle. So the quality lifestyle is something that my words come share. Not much I can convince you, but I will invite you to come to South Australia. So you come and visit us, you will be able to enjoy the quality lifestyle. And later on, Ryan will also cover a little bit area about the lifestyle in South Australia. Right, on the education, once you're given a permanent resident, the childcare is being subsidized. Current pandemic situation, I heard that the government is actually providing the childcare fee to a lot of parents. So that actually enlightened a lot of them, allowed the parents to go to the workforce. And schooling from primary all the way until year 12, your pre-U, is all taken care by the government if you are going to a public school. Now, when your children enter into the tertiary education, me being a permanent resident or you being a permanent resident, your children will enjoy a subsidized school fee, right, for the university. So we actually pay a fraction of the fee, and the other big part of it is actually under the Commonwealth Support Program. So what are the fee difference? Let me just show you an example. All right, this is just taken in the year of 2018. As you can see the red circle there, this is what a local student pay. So if your child will study Bachelor of Medicine, they basically pay about $10,958 per annum. If you are non-resident, right, being an overseas student, your child will pay 76,000 Australian dollars. This is a huge saving for one child, right? So you have 3 children, you have 5 children, you do the math from there. Right, I will just keep this slide so that I don't take too much time from here. So Australia has one of the best universities in the world. So this is the worldwide ranking, Australian National U, University of Melbourne, University of Sydney, obviously University of Adelaide. They are also one of the top universities in the world. Now, the other area is on a world-class medical facility. So we are so blessed in Australia that we have one of the best healthcare in the world. And once you are a permanent resident, most of the medical requirement is taken care by the government if you are going to the public hospital. We are given a Medicare card, and if we are going for any treatment, part of the treatment in the private hospital will be actually bought by the government. Okay, basically I'll end my presentation here. I will stand by for the Q&A. These are the list of the contacts that you can contact us on our mobile phone numbers, all right? These are my team in Malaysia. You can always give us a ring, or you find that you want to contact us by text or by email to communicate with us. So with that, I basically pass the floor back to Jimmy, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dato. In fact, we have quite a few questions from the floor already, but we will only focus on the Q&A after the next introduction by Mr. Ryan Beer. So Ryan, could you just do a brief introduction about yourself? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Sorry, just one moment. Just check, Jimmy, that's okay. The screen's okay.
Yes, cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction, Jimmy, and thank you also, Dato, Michael, Yong. I first want to, thank you for inviting me to this seminar. I've been obviously to many seminars with Kitson over the last few years with my time in the South Australian Government Immigration Department, as well as in the private sector. I wish we could see each other face to face to deliver this information seminar, but we'll have to wait until things get a bit freer. Again, thank you again for the opportunity. So my background, as Jimmy mentioned earlier on, is I started in the migration and business and trade area between Asia and Australia in 2001. The most recent role I had was in the South Australian Immigration Department, where I actually first met Kitson and first started working with Michael, Dato, Michael Yong and Jimmy. And in that time, I've seen a lot of successful clients choosing South Australia as a destination to do business, to travel, to have their children educated, and to live and invest. I think that the overall feeling in South Australia is quite positive previously, and now actually even more so, notwithstanding the current pause on activity. I just want to talk quickly about these 6 things. I'm not going to go through all the headings, but for those that are watching in the video later, this is what I'm going to try to cover. The recent and current situation, before I even go on to any of those dot points, I just saw a news report on my phone literally while Malka was talking that said, currently South Australia has only 1 person in hospital due to coronavirus. So it doesn't really matter what else I say and what else is on the screen. We only have 1 person in hospital. I think that in itself says enough about the way the state was positioned to weather this current pandemic, as well as how we dealt with the situation. We were probably lucky to begin with because we are on a large island, as Michael said, and also, to be honest, it's a very healthy country. The nature and the geography is quite healthy, and so I wasn't surprised by what's happened up until today. I was a bit scared in the early days, but I'm not surprised what's happened. So we've got 1 person in hospital as of today. We never had any pressure applied to our medical situation that I'm aware of. As of Monday, it says there the 11th of May. I think it's actually the 12th of May. I apologise. We're going to have quite a lot of freedoms opened up in the state. I should say that my comments that I'm making on this presentation have nothing to do with my time in government. They're only my personal observations. The comments that I'm making are also from what I've experienced personally, as well as, just what I've learned in the news and things like that. They're not formal comments from the government or anyone else's perspective. The obvious thing for me working in the business migration area is the inconvenience of not being able to travel to South Australia, or Australia for that matter. That's not something that is unique to Australia. That's the whole world. But at the moment, our government, from what I can see on the TV and the news reports, there is really no plan as to when overseas travellers can start to travel back to Australia and South Australia. If you are a citizen or a permanent resident, then there are ways that you can come to Australia, but you will need to quarantine. But as a non-permanent resident or as a non-citizen, my understanding is that currently there's no ability to travel. What that has done is in the business migration space, or the trade investment for the purposes of getting a visa space, it's created opportunities for South Australian companies to, create new ways, now becoming quite common ways to service our friends and clients and customers overseas. So expect to see an increase in people delivering informational sessions on products and investment opportunities through things such as this that Kitson have put on today. Zoom type meetings will be commonplace if they're not already, and hopefully that provides a way for current and future clients who may be impacted by travel restrictions to connect with local businesses and understand more about products and investment opportunities. this is, again, I want to talk about what I see as the basic opportunities. I could talk for 2 days on this, and with Michael and Jimmy, I've already spoken a lot about what I see as the current and future. When I say future, I mean very near future opportunities for the business migration industry and clients. What we're going to see now, what we're already seeing, is that South Australian companies, and I've also put in brackets governmental departments, they will now, even if they previously knew or felt that they should not be focusing so much on the mainland China market, previously they still couldn't get away from that market because there was so much demand and so many people that they didn't have time or resources to service additional markets. Now, with what's happened, that spreading of or diversifying of clients and customers and markets is now, I believe, going to happen. It was happening before the travel bans, but then the travel bans put a stop to that. Expect to see a lot of South Australian businesses be extremely interested to speak with non-mainland Chinese customers, because now they have the incentive and also perhaps the time to be able to do that. Of course, they're still going to do business with mainland China. It's a main trading partner of many of our businesses, and I assume also in Malaysia. But they will now have a lot more incentive to diversify their particular or to diversify their customers. That's going to be a big thing, and I think we'll see that over the next 1 or 2 years. That's going to play a big role in where South Australia, the areas within which South Australian are doing business and where they travel, etc., for business purposes. I know that that's actually as a fact. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. The phone calls and the conversations that I'm hearing, as well as what I know the various government departments have been trying to do prior to the travel shutdown, there's definitely been a refocus on other non-China areas, non-mainland China. Well, before I speak about the dollar, what that means in simple terms is that you will have more of an audience with South Australian businesses. They'll be more receptive to inquiries that you make to them, and whereas previously they just may not have had the time or capacity to do it because of the amount of demand from mainland China. So another thing that I have seen during this COVID pandemic is that the Australian dollar versus the US dollar has dropped to historically low rates. For some of the Chinese clients and business people that I know, this has provided an amazing advantage for them in their business activities in South Australia. Put it simply, it means the products that they're buying, depending on the currency they've got at hand, has become a lot cheaper relative to their own currency. And it even got to the situation where I had at least one client I couldn't speak to for a few days because they were dealing purely with currency exchange issues, trying to make use of the Australian dollar. So that's been actually quite a good benefit as an Australian. I'll say it's been a good benefit for Australia, because all of a sudden our opportunities and our products have become quite attractive due to that exchange rate. I think that's another thing that overseas potential business migrants or current business migrants need to consider about the timing of their business activities in Australia. This is again I've been speaking to Michael and Jimmy about this quite a bit, and it's something that is of keen interest to me. The opportunities in Australia for trade, investment, living, education, life, everything. I touch wood, and I hope it turns out to be the case, but we will be seen as an extremely attractive jurisdiction to do all of these things once this pandemic settles down, and once the the travel restrictions are lifted globally or at least regionally. This is really now proof of all of the things that people like Kitson Migration and my former department have been saying for many, many years. But now it's the proof. We are a safe place. We are a stable place. We are a healthy place. My opinion is that we're a very beautiful place. It's also a very fun place, but it's hard to give evidence of that. It's that you have to make that decision yourself. But in the end, my opinion is that once the current health concerns settle down, then we are going to see a lot of interest in Australia for all things, because we have been one of the leading countries in dealing with this, and it's also proven all of the things that we've been saying for a long time. But now there is proof. I hope that remains the case, and I don't want to say anything that I might regret soon. But I still think that Australia is going to be an amazingly attractive place to invest in the next few years, or the next foreseeable future. I'll say that. But please note, those customer or clients of Kitson, or anyone that's looking at Australia and South Australia as a place to invest, you do need to be aware that recently our department, it's Treasury Department in Australia, which is responsible for approving or setting conditions on foreign investment, they have widened the scope of acquisitions by foreign individuals or companies that need to be assessed by them. What that has done has slowed down processing, because they have a much larger caseload now. So if you are looking to take advantage of Australia as a ideal place to invest or do business, or in this case invest or acquire land, and you do want to take advantage of the historically low exchange rates, then just be aware that there is a Foreign Investment Review Board impact at the moment, and that may impact on some of the timings on when transactions can take effect, and you need to get approvals for things which previously you may not have need to. So before you do conduct any significant investments, just check that, or have your legal advisors or have Kitson Migration check that for you. What I can say that is that for those who are lucky enough to already have a 132 visa, which I'm not going to go into the details of the 132 visa, but it's the visa that South Australia is very competitive for. If you do have a 132 visa, you already have a permanent resident status, and this may make this FIRB issue irrelevant, because you've already got permanent residency status. So that's a very good advantage for those that do have that visa, or who are about to receive that visa. I'll leave it at that, other than to say that at this point, it's a watch and see situation. Because it's quite new, the changes that have taken place, it may just be that it slows some transaction down. We haven't seen any evidence of transactions being refused because of these new new processes, but it may be a bit slower than, let's say, 3 months ago before this pandemic occurred. That's it from me. Thank you very much again to Kitson Migration, and to Dato, Michael Yong and his team in Malaysia and in Adelaide. I welcome everyone to South Australia, and of course, if you've got any questions after, please feel free to submit them, and through Kitson Migration, I'm happy to assist any way I can. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, Dato and Ryan, for their brief introductions. Now we will be open up the floor for questions that you have pertaining to our topic today on outlook of Australia business and investment opportunity in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a question from the floor. I hope, Ryan, you can help us to clarify this issue here. This is how the question sounds. How has coronavirus pandemic affect the migration process for Malaysian and any other country?
Yep. Okay. So the what I understand is
we will open up the.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep. Okay. So.
Sorry about that.
Okay, carry on.
So I'll carry on. Sorry. What I understand is that there's two practical issues that may have impacted decision making from not just Malaysian but any business migration applications. The first impact, which again is a practical impact, is that in Hong Kong and also in Adelaide, where the majority, perhaps all, but I understand the majority of the decisions are made on those visas, they will have had to implement work from home or some other type of self-isolation or social distancing procedures. So I know from my time in government, that's just going to take a lot of time or relative amount of time to arrange, and therefore they can't make decisions on visas or make decisions at the rate that they could have if everything was business as usual. So that's a practical implementation. A practical impact. The other impact that I see, which is again practical, but is that I think, and it's my personal opinion or my personal views, that I think that the department would have had to have severely decrease the number of current decisions being made because of the uncertainty regarding the ability to travel and things like that. The federal government doesn't know what's going to happen globally from a health perspective, let alone when international airlines can fly in and out of Australia. So my feeling is that there's no point approving visas if no one can fly into Australia. So there's a lot of knock-on effect, or there's a lot of effects that this COVID virus has had from a practical standpoint. As far as the policy of the federal government with respect to granting visas, I really don't know how it's affected that. I can't comment on that, but I think that the current slowdown, which I understand there has been, would definitely be from those two reasons. One, the social distancing, and secondly, the difficulties in granting visas when people can't travel on those visas. There's a lot of other complications that can arise because of that.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. The next one is, I was asking, let's assume that Australia have lifted the restriction of traveling. Is it still a good time to invest in an investment or business in Australia in the midst of this so-called economy downturn?
Well, I'll tell you my own view. Yep. My own view is that even if you can't travel, if you have been to South Australia, and I only talk about South Australia because that's the only state that I'm really comfortable talking about. If you can't travel, but you have met with potential business partners, etc., now's as good a time as any. I think, going on my comments previously, that Australia is going to become far more attractive moving forward than we perhaps were previously relative to other countries. I understand people don't want to invest before they've really done all of their due diligence, but that's not possible now. So there are these other ways of doing that, and that could be by speaking with potential business partners on things such as Zoom. Law firms and accounting firms that can assist with due diligence are still open. You can still deal with them, as well as firms such as Kitson Migration, who can assist with a lot of this investment and introduction type services. So I would be personally uncomfortable to invest anywhere if I couldn't go there. However, that's not the possibility now. If there's anywhere as safe to invest as, under these current circumstances, then I would say Australia would, and South Australia would definitely be one of these places. If the economy were to get worse in the near future or the future, yes, there might be some decrease in asset prices and things like that, which an astute business person might not like missing out on if they were to wait, but that's just a business decision. As far as relative safety in the current situation, I think Australia is as safe and as attractive as anywhere else in general terms.
Thanks, Ryan. There's another question here. With the increasing unemployment, I think that this is a global issue, whereby Australia was also not spared with the unemployment issue. So as a new migrant, if they were to move to Australia now, is there a great challenge for them to get employment in the midst of a situation like this?
Well, that's not really my area, actually. I'm a bit of a business migration person, and business migration clients tend to, in my experience, generate employment, not look for employment. So the question of whether a new migrant under, say, a skilled migration visa or some other type of visa could get employment, I'm probably not the best person to ask. I don't know how to answer that. I'm afraid it's sort of a wait and see at the moment on that issue, and not really my area of expertise.
Dato, will you care to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, my view is just my view. Basically, I just speak from my own view of employment. I think this is a global issue. So almost all the countries in the world, when this global pandemic comes in, so when the business economy shrink, obviously the recruitment and getting employment is going to be affected, right? So, however, business as usual, all right, it's a matter of time that you will recover, whether which country will recover first or which country will be able to get the economy running as soon as possible and to create a job opportunity. So it's just a supply and demand thing. Huh? So economy picks up, employment rates will pick up. Yeah.
The next question is by Ariana Musa, which is directed specially to Ryan. Is South Australia still giving state nomination to offshore applicants?
Offshore, this is another skilled question.
I think this could be a two-part question. It could be skill and it could be business and investment. My understanding is both this visa require state nomination. Yeah,
so if offshore refers to a skilled migrant, then I don't deal with that. I don't deal with that, I'm afraid. So I can't answer that question. For business migration, there would be nothing stopping the state government to provide nomination except for this year, which finishes in 30 June. My understanding is currently, or sometime previously, the South Australian government sent out an information circular saying that they had already filled their quota. In years gone past, notwithstanding we may have filled our quota for nominations, we could still apply for or ask or request for further quota. But my guess is that the federal government will not be giving out any more quota for this financial year, so that to allow the South Australian government to make any more nominations for business migration visas. And this is purely because of the current uncertainty around COVID-19 throughout the globe. So they would be making decisions, but they don't have any quota. So they can't make a decision because they've got no quota.
How about from your point of view, Dato?
Yeah, so the Department of the Immigration South Australia, yes, as Ryan has said, they have sent out a circulation to say that the quota for this financial year has been all taken up, and they are open for intention to apply. So which means we can still put in I wouldn't call it an application. We can put in intention to apply, where we put in the client information, the business type that they are doing, and what research they have done. So over this month or two, we have put in a few cases in for the intention to apply. So we just look forward for the opening on 1st of July for the new quota. And what will be the quota? That is going to be a $1 million question. However, the Immigration South Australia has been very up to date. They usually will have announcement on their website.
That's a good point, Michael. I'm glad to hear you say that they're utilizing the intention to apply system, because that assists them in the when the new year opens. It means that they don't have a huge landslide of applications on the first. So that's a very good way to manage a high case flow. In my experience. That's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you.
This is again for Ryan. During the COVID-19 situation, is there any restriction for terms or condition for product to be exported to other country?
Not that I'm aware. My experience was that when China and the coronavirus issue first started in late January and around Chinese New Year, there was a steep drop-off in orders and exports generally because of the uncertainty. And then as time went past and people realized that there wasn't a restriction, and then coupled with the low Australia dollar, there was quite a bit of activity. Things have slowed down again, but to my knowledge, it's not through any restrictions placed on export due to that virus. It's just whatever's happening now is due to normal economic demand and supply, but impacted by coronavirus, to my understanding. And I'm only commenting on the common types of export that we deal with in business migration area, being your food and wine.
What is your view of the current property scenario in South Australia? Would it be getting better or would it be getting worse?
Well, South Australia has always been traditionally a very slow but stable property environment. I have to be honest, I haven't looked at the most recent property indicators in residential and commercial property markets, but it's not a volatile market. I think that it doesn't matter what happens in Australia or globally. I think that because we are a steady market and a safe market, we're going to see increased interest once things start to open up, if not already. But I haven't looked at the latest situation. That's only, from my experience being in South Australia. I think it would look good, but in my view, South Australia has always been a safe place to invest for property.
Thank you. I think the next one will be for Dato. If South Australia were to open back their nomination for application regardless of skill and businesses, what is the usual duration timeline for the nomination to get through?
Let me just focus on the business nomination part first. Yeah. So the general timeline is within a month for them to produce the nomination for the 188 business or investor visa, and similarly for the 132.
Okay. Let me see. There is another question here from the floor. Let me just give me a second. I need to. As an investor into Australia who are planning to migrate via South Australia, is it compulsory for them to actually invest in property?
No, it's not compulsory. No.
Which means they can invest in any form of investment instead of property?
Well, at fear of giving migration advice, what I would say is that I would ask Kitson Migration what they can or what they need to invest in. They can invest in property if they want. They can invest in property in order to get a visa if they want. I would speak with Kitson about those property pathways. They don't have to. There are other avenues or other options to invest or trade in order to get that visa. But yeah, it's certainly not mandatory. It's certainly not mandatory.
Yeah, Dato, care to comment on this one?
Yeah, it's important to clarify. I think the question says about investment in property. So for business migration, the investment for South Australia, basically they have a pathway for property development. So which means you can invest into a business as a property developer. You build house and you sell. There's a lot of perception, people misunderstand, thinking that, oh, you buy a property, you get a permanent visa for Australia. No, that's not the way, right? So property development is one of the pathways, right? I say you can actually go into different type of businesses. You can actually build a hotel. You can actually go into a retail business. You can actually go into other form of import-export business, you know. So which means exporting South Australia product is one of the options that you can go in for the 132 business nomination.
Yeah, Michael, I want to add again that if a client does want to invest in property, they certainly can do so in order to get their visa. And it's an increasingly popular way to do that in South Australia. My view is that for property investment or property development for the purposes of getting a visa, South Australia is the best state within Australia to do it, or the most flexible state within which to do it. But the clients are not required to invest in property. They do have those other options, as Michael says.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure who would better answer the next question. Ryan.
Michael.
Okay.
Michael.
Ryan, you say that South Australia, the COVID-19 case have been greatly decreased, and glad to hear that. So is there a possibility that the government will open up the border earlier than their initial announcement that they will close the border for the next 6 months?
So I guess I have to answer that. I didn't hear that they were going to close the border for the next 6 months. I don't think they've said when the borders will remain closed. But so currently the South Australian border within Australia is closed. There are some exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, it's closed. The national border, international border is closed. The South Australian border will be opened before the international border, in my view. Again, they haven't said when. And the international border, we don't know yet. It really depends more on countries outside of Australia that will determine when they can open the Australian border. The South Australian border, they haven't made any definitive comment because I think they're still waiting to see what happens within the other states in Australia. Currently, I believe New South Wales and Victoria still have some cases and are going to be slower in opening up. But the other states, including South Australia, Queensland, and other states, certainly in the Northern Territory, have opened up quite a bit already. And as of Monday and into the next few weeks, we'll be continuing to open up further.
Thanks. The next question is directed to Dato. I think this gentleman is a Australia visa holder. His question sounds this way. Due to the limited commercial flight to Australia, and his visa will be expired soon, but he have not fulfilled the resident requirement. What is your advice on that?
Okay, assume that the person is offshore right now, and being a permanent resident, assume that he or she wants to clock up the number of days to stay, right? So if the current situation where you can't fly, the commercial flight is limited, obviously it will affect the number of days that you live in Australia. So in terms of permanent resident, if you were to apply for your resident return visa, one of the mandatory requirement to obtain a 5 years renewal is that you need to clock up 730 days in the last 5 years at the time of application. However, for those who can't make it, but they have substantial ties, which speak to my team, we will be able to explain to you what are substantial ties. If you maintain the substantial tie-in, you can renew your resident return visa for 1 year. Right? So that is something that it will help you to maintain your PR. Now, talking about limited commercial flight, just a personal interest. I'm also looking forward to come back to Adelaide, and especially look forward to meet up with Ryan in Cairns. He's now in Cairns. With a nice sunshine, the nice sunshine cities in Australia.
I have no jacket on. I have no jacket on today.
That's right. That's right. That's right. My Adelaide team is wearing a big jumper on top. Yeah. So I was checking through one of the local Malaysia, our local Malaysia homegrown airline, the budget airline. They start to sell KL Sydney sector. Right. I haven't checked Melbourne yet, but they're starting to sell for the month of July. But obviously there is some conditions there subject to government approval. So I look forward to be back in July, if the flight is available. And the good thing about Australia, the current situation, we are getting good news every day. So I follow the news quite often. So if you guys are a viewer, do follow the ABC channel, the Australia ABC News channel. So you will basically hear the Prime Minister speak, I think almost once or twice a day, and the individual state premier will come in to speak about the state. So that will actually give you the accurate information. Sorry, over to you, Jimmy.
Okay, the next one here is this gentleman here asked, he is planning to apply for the visa via a business visa and planning to do some export from South Australia. So Ryan, in your opinion, what is the best product to export from South Australia, and will the state government assist them or give them recommendation on this aspect?
The South Australian government won't tell him what to export, but they certainly will provide him with some guidance. I can provide some guidance now, and that is to say that the largest export from South Australia in total for anything is red wine. However, red wine perhaps for Malaysia and Southeast Asia is not the largest. And what we find, or what I found in my time in government, was that our friends and our clients from Malaysia and Sabah and Brunei and Vietnam, Singapore, they really exported a big range of products. However, those products generally were food and wine, food and drinks, food and beverages. So if you can drink it or eat it, that's what South Australia has excelled at exporting. If that gentleman has a particular interest in a type of product, then certainly they could ask Kitson, or they could ask the immigration department in South Australia directly as to whether there are opportunities to source that product in South Australia, and I'm sure they'll help. There are some other websites. Around which I could provide to that gentleman if you want me to. And after there's one, it's called SASD Connect, I believe. If you Google searched SASD Connect, that's got some information on different types of products for export. That's a China-specific website, but the exporters are definitely not only China-focused. And then another good website for food and beverage is Food SA, I believe, or Food South Australia. I don't know the website off the top of my head, but if you Google Food SA or Food South Australia, there is a lot of suppliers on there. And then the Immigration SA could definitely assist as well. There's many products that are good for exporting, as you and Dato Michael know. Luckily for Dato Michael and myself, a lot of it is beautiful red wine and other types of good things to drink.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. I think this question will be for Dato. If I'm holding a significant investor visa, can my family have the working right and also the educational right in Australia?
Okay, basically the significant investor visa, the short is SIV. So it's the subclass 188. So 188 will come with work right, business right, right? So the main applicant and the family member in Australia basically can run their own business, can go for employment, Yeah, and then obviously a lot of our clients actually go for retirement.
Okay, thank you, Dato. So which means they have the right to work also in Australia under this visa.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Let me see. Pretty much, I think that is all the question from the floor. Do you have anything you want to add, Dato and Ryan?
I just have a quick one, Ryan. It has been more than 1.5 months or not being the meetup with you in Adelaide, and we catch up a few times in the Zoom to have a quick chat. So I look forward to come back. And me and Ryan, we have very good experience in Adelaide. So we basically have been teaming up together to support the migrants who come in. So we have quite a few families who experience Ryan hospitality and Ryan knowledge. So we really appreciate that Ryan can spend his Saturday evening, in Cairns right now. It's a nice sunshine city. He should be at the pool or at the waterfront going for fishing. But thank you very much that you spend this time to us, and I look forward to come back to be able to catch up with Ryan, and also viewers out there. If you guys are thinking of coming over to South Australia, Adelaide, we welcome you with a big welcome. All right, big hand, big arm, red carpet to welcome you, and we look forward that you can be able to experience the lifestyle and to actually look forward to build your home in South Australia. And then we'll be able to show you around the business opportunity. The most important is that you are in good hand. We will connect you to the right party. What are you doing, Ryan?
Yeah, I would repeat everything that you just said, Michael, and thank you again for the opportunity, not only today to present to your audience, but also for what we've done over the last few years, or probably the last 5 years, really. It's been really positive, and I know that while I'm not with the South Australian government anymore, I know that the South Australian government really appreciates the effort that you and your team have done to promote South Australia, and then to look after everyone once they get into South Australia. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the date that you can fly back, and then also the date that I can fly back. I'll say one last cheeky comment, and that is that during this lockdown period, there's no better place. There cannot be any better place in the world than to be in Australia during lockdown. You know, even though we were in lockdown, my local government allowed us to go fishing. You know, I've got to take the boat to get cleaned now because I've been fishing in it regularly. You know, this is in a lockdown environment, so what a great place. Things are going to open up next week, and I think that restaurants, bars, and other similar entertainment is going to open up. Tomorrow is Mother's Day in Australia, and many of the states were able to go and visit our mothers for Mother's Day, and everything's opening up quicker and quicker. So I'm not surprised at the progress or the good situation we had relative to other countries in the world, because I've been traveling the world saying this to everyone for a long time. Now is the proof. I'm very sorry that other countries are experiencing quite a lot of trauma at the moment and uncertainty. But selfishly, my role has been for the last 20 years is to promote Australia and South Australia as a place for people to live, and welcoming them to come and live and do business and have your children educated. And while it's a horrible thing that's going on right now, for me has been a positive in that it's not my words saying it, it's just the proof. So I hope that's not too cynical a note to end on. But yeah, again, thank you again, Michael and Jimmy, and thanks for all of your efforts in the last sort of half decade already to promote our state and the opportunities there.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today, and thanks to both our speakers today to share with us on the current situation in South Australia and also Australia during the pandemic. We will see you again next week, same time. Next week, we will be focusing on how to prepare yourself for the English tests. And since English test is the compulsory test for the migration, So we will have a guest speaker who is an English teacher. She has been doing giving English classes for all the migrants to prepare themselves for the English class. So thank you again, and see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jimmy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.